My parents spent my entire college fund on my brother's third failed business, so when they asked to move in with me after retirement, I handed them the same budget they left me. I was 17 when I found out. Senior year, acceptance letter from Northwestern in hand, ready to celebrate. Dad sat me down at the kitchen table with this look I'd never seen before. "We need to talk about college," he said. My stomach dropped. "Your brother's launching a tech startup. Revolutionary app idea. We're investing." Investing what? I already knew. The college fund. But don't worry. When the company goes public, we'll pay you back triple. I stared at him. That's my money. Grandma left it specifically for my education. Mom appeared in the doorway. "Your brother needs our support. You can take out loans like everyone else. This is what family does." The app failed within 8 months. Before that, there'd been the boutique fitness studio that closed in 6 weeks, and the organic meal prep service that gave 40 people food poisoning. My brother had a gift for burning through money and blaming external factors. I took out $127,000 in student loans, worked 3 jobs through college, graduated with a finance degree and a burning hatred for the phrase, "family comes first." My brother moved back home at 32, still convinced his next idea would hit big. I moved across the country, paid off my loans in 6 years through brutal hours and extreme budgeting, and bought a 3-bedroom house at 29. I didn't invite them to the housewarming. Last month, Dad called. "Your mother and I are retiring next year. We were thinking we could move in with you." I actually laughed. "You're joking. We sold the house to cover some debts. Your brother's been staying with us and, well, things have been tight. We figured you have that big house. The house I bought with money I earned while drowning in debt you created?" Silence. "We're family," Mom said, having grabbed the other phone. "You can't just abandon us." I took a deep breath. "I'll help you the exact same way you helped me." "What does that mean?" I pulled up my old loan documents and did the math. "When I was 18, you left me with $0 for college and told me to figure it out. So here's what I can offer you." I emailed them a detailed breakdown. $0 for housing, a list of affordable apartment complexes near public transportation, information on Social Security benefits and senior discount programs, links to job boards for retirees. "You're young enough to work part-time," I added. "Just like I did." My father's voice went cold. "This is cruel." "No, this is fair. I'm treating you exactly how you treated me. You taught me that family means making sacrifices for the people who need it least. Your brother needed that opportunity, and I needed an education, but apparently his third scam was more important than my future." Mom started crying. "We made mistakes, but we're your parents. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It meant something when I was 17 and you chose him over me. Now you know how that feels?" I hung up. For 3 weeks, they tried everything. Guilt trips from relatives. My brother called, screaming about loyalty. Distant cousins I'd never met sent messages about forgiveness. I blocked them all. Then yesterday, a certified letter arrived. Inside was a notice from an attorney. My parents are suing me for elder care, claiming I have a legal obligation to house them. The letter mentioned something about filial responsibility laws and included testimonies from family members about my cruelty and abandonment. Attached was a photo. My brother standing in front of a brand new Tesla, grinning at the camera. The caption read, "Finally, the big one hit. Thanks for believing in me, Mom and Dad." They'd found money for his 4th venture. I stared at that photo for an hour. Then I called the attorney listed on the lawsuit, left a voicemail requesting all financial documents my parents submitted as evidence of their poverty, because if they're suing me for support while funding my brother's luxury car, I have questions. My lawyer called back within 2 hours. "We need to talk," she said. "I found something in your brother's business registration. Your parents aren't just investors." My hands went cold. "What do you mean?" "They're listed as co-founders. Your brother's company, Tech Venture Solutions, shows your mother and father each owning 30% equity. Your brother has 40%. I pulled up my laptop and searched for the company. The website was sleek, professional, nothing like my brother's previous disasters. "They've been operating for 8 months, my lawyer continued. "Revenue projections show they're on track to gross $2.3 million this year." I felt sick. So the Tesla wasn't a gift. No, it's a company car, registered to the business. And there's more. I heard papers shuffling. "Your parents filed bankruptcy 2 months ago. Personal bankruptcy, not business. They transferred all their remaining assets, the house sale proceeds, their retirement accounts, everything, into the business before filing. The business is protected. They're claiming poverty while sitting on a company worth potentially millions. That's fraud. It walks a very thin legal line. But here's what's interesting. They're suing you for elder support while running a profitable business. That's going to be hard to justify in court." I leaned back in my chair, mind racing. "Can we countersue? We can do better than that. Your grandmother's will specifically designated that money for your education. When your parents took it for the business, they violated the terms of her estate. The statute of limitations hasn't expired because you were a minor when the violation occurred. How much are we talking about?" The original fund was $147,000 in 2015. With compound interest and damages, we're looking at approximately $380,000. I sat in silence processing this. "There's something else," my lawyer said. "I found your brother's social media. He's been posting about the business constantly. Luxury dinners, business trips to Dubai, a new boat. And in one post from 3 months ago, he thanked your parents for sacrificing everything to make this dream possible." She paused. "He specifically mentioned using his sister's college fund as seed money, called it the best investment our family ever made." My vision blurred. He'd actually posted about it, bragged about stealing my future. Forward me everything, I said. Every post, every financial document, every piece of evidence you can find. Already done. Check your email. I'm also sending you something else. A forensic accountant I work with. If there's financial misconduct here, he'll find it. After we hung up, I opened my email. Dozens of documents loaded, business registrations, bank statements, social media screenshots, and there, in a photo from 6 months ago, was my entire family at a restaurant. The caption read, "Celebrating Tech Ventures' first major client. None of this would be possible without the seed money that started it all. Sometimes you have to make hard choices for the greater good of the family." The comments were filled with congratulations. Friends and relatives praising my parents' business acumen, my brother's friends calling him a visionary. Not one person asked where that seed money came from. Not one person mentioned me. I spent the next 3 days building a case that would destroy them. The forensic accountant found irregularities immediately. The business had been operating for 2 years, not 8 months. My parents had been funneling money into it while still living in their house, before declaring bankruptcy. They'd been planning this for a long time. The bankruptcy filing claimed they had $47,000 in assets. The business records showed they'd transferred $670,000 into the company over 2 years. Money from the house sale, retirement accounts, and yes, my grandmother's trust fund. They committed bankruptcy fraud, the accountant explained over Zoom. They hid assets in the business, then filed personal bankruptcy to avoid creditors. The trustee should have caught this. But your brother structured it cleverly. Shell companies, staggered transfers, offshore accounts. How is my brother capable of this? His other businesses all failed. The accountant smiled grimly. Because he wasn't running those? This time, your parents are running the show. Your brother is just the face, the charming salesman. They're the ones with the business degrees and financial knowledge. Suddenly, everything made sense. The previous failures weren't failures. They were learning experiences, trial runs. My parents had been teaching my brother how to run a business, using my money as tuition, and now they'd figured it out. I contacted the bankruptcy trustee directly, sent every document. Within a week, the trustee filed a motion to reopen the case and investigate fraudulent transfer of assets. My parents' attorney called me. "Your actions are tearing this family apart," he said. "I'm not tearing anything apart. I'm exposing what was already broken. They're willing to settle. Drop your counterclaim and they'll drop the elder care lawsuit." "No, you're being unreasonable. I'm being treated exactly how they treated me, with complete disregard for my well-being. Tell them I'll see them in court." He sighed. "Your brother wants to talk to you. My brother can rot." I hung up and immediately received a text from a number I didn't recognize. "We need to meet, just you and me, please." It was my brother. I blocked the number. 2 hours later, he showed up at my house. I watched through the Ring camera as he rang the doorbell repeatedly, then started knocking. "I know you're home," he called. "I just want to talk." I opened the door but kept the security chain on. "You have 30 seconds. He looked different, older, tired. The cocky grin from the Tesla photo was gone. "None of this was supposed to happen," he started. "You have 15 seconds left. I didn't know they were using your college fund. Not at first. By the time I found out, the business was already running and you posted about it on social media. You called it the best investment our family ever made." His face fell. "That was Mom's idea. She said it would be good for the company image, family sacrifice and all that. You're 34 years old. You don't get to blame Mom for your social media posts." I know. But listen, the business is real this time. We're actually making money. I can pay you back. Whatever you lost, plus interest. Just drop the lawsuits." "It's not about the money." "Then what is it about?" I opened the door fully, looking him dead in the eye. "It's about you and Mom and Dad choosing your dream over my future. It's about watching you fail 3 times while I worked myself to exhaustion. It's about coming home for Christmas and hearing Mom brag about your latest idea while I was rationing meals to afford student loan payments." My voice cracked. "It's about being 17 years old and realizing my family didn't actually love me. They loved what I could provide." "That's not true. Then why am I here? Why did it take a lawsuit for you to show up? Why didn't you call when I graduated? When I bought this house? When I paid off those loans that should never have existed?" He had no answer. "You want to know what's funny?" I continued. "I would have been happy for you. If you'd succeeded the first time, or the second, or the third, I would have cheered you on. But you didn't succeed until you had Mom and Dad running everything, using money that was supposed to be mine. We can fix this." "No, we can't. Because fixing it would mean admitting what you did was wrong. And none of you will do that. You're here because I'm causing problems, not because you're sorry." I started to close the door. "Wait," he said desperately. "What do you want?" "I want my education fund back. I want compound interest for every year I paid student loans. I want Mom and Dad to admit they committed fraud, and I want all of you to understand that actions have consequences. They'll lose everything." "Good. Then they'll know exactly how I felt at 18. I closed the door and locked it, watched through the camera as my brother stood there for 5 minutes before finally leaving. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every family dinner, every holiday, every moment where I should have seen this coming. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Please call me. We need to talk about this like adults." I stared at the message. After everything, she still thought she could manipulate me with the right words. I called her. "Finally," she answered. "We've been trying to reach you for days. I've been busy building a case against you." Silence. "That's cruel," she said finally. "After everything we've done for you, stop. Right there. Do not finish that sentence. You've done nothing for me. I paid for my own education. I built my own life. You don't get to take credit for any of it. We raised you, the bare minimum. Congratulations. I heard her breathing heavily, trying to control her anger. Your father had a heart attack last week. My stomach dropped. What? The stress from all this. He collapsed at the office. He's in the hospital right now. I wanted to feel sympathy, wanted to feel anything except the cold calculation running through my mind. Is he okay? He will be. If we can reduce his stress. If his daughter would stop attacking her own family. And there it was. The manipulation. You're using Dad's health to guilt me into dropping the lawsuit. I'm telling you what's happening because of your actions. No. Dad had a heart attack because he's been running a fraudulent business while hiding assets in bankruptcy. That stress he created. How can you be so heartless? I learned from the best. I hung up and immediately called my lawyer. Dad had a heart attack. They're going to use this. Let them try, she said. We have medical records showing he's been under treatment for high blood pressure and cholesterol for 5 years. This isn't sudden stress, this is long-term health issues catching up. But a jury might sympathize. A jury will also see the evidence of fraud, the hidden assets, the stolen inheritance. Your father's health is unfortunate, but it doesn't erase what they did. She was right, but I still felt sick. The next morning, my aunt called, Dad's sister, who I hadn't spoken to in years. I heard about your father, she said. Is he okay? He's recovering, but I'm not calling about that. I waited. I need to tell you something I should have said years ago. When your grandmother died and left that money for your education, your father fought her on it, said the money should be split equally among all grandchildren. I didn't know that. She refused. She specifically wanted it to go to you because she knew you'd actually use it for school. She knew your brother would waste it. My throat tightened. She made your father promise in front of her attorney that the money would only be used for your education. He promised. And then the minute the funds transferred, he started looking for ways around it. Why are you telling me this now? Because your mother called me last night, crying about how cruel you're being, and I'm tired of watching this family protect people who don't deserve it. Your grandmother would be furious if she knew what they did. Did you tell Mom that? I told her that if she contacts me again to complain about you, I'll testify on your behalf. That shut her up pretty quick. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen and cried for the first time since this started. Not sad tears, angry ones, frustrated ones. Years of suppressed emotion finally breaking through. My grandmother had tried to protect me, and they'd violated her trust anyway. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. My lawyer prepared me for what to expect. They're going to paint you as vindictive and greedy. They'll bring up every childhood slight, every argument, every reason you might have to hurt them. And what do we say? We present facts, financial records, timeline of events. We let the evidence speak for itself. What about Dad's heart attack? They'll mention it. We'll express sympathy and move on. Don't let them bait you into looking cold. The day before the hearing, I received a Facebook message from my brother's ex-girlfriend. We'd been friendly years ago before she and my brother broke up. I heard what's happening, she wrote. I have information you need. We met at a coffee shop. She looked nervous, clutching a folder. I dated your brother for 3 years, she started. During that time, I saw a lot. Too much. She slid the folder across the table. This is everything he told me about the business. How your parents planned it. How they deliberately failed the first 3 businesses to test different models. How they always intended to use your money as the final investment. I opened the folder. Text messages, emails, handwritten notes. He kept all this? He didn't. I did. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't have proof until now. When I saw what they were doing to you, I couldn't stay silent. One email in particular made me want to throw up. From my mother to my brother. The 4th attempt will work. We've learned from the mistakes. And once we're profitable, we'll have more than enough to pay her back eventually. She'll understand when she sees how successful we are. They never intended to make me understand, I said. They intended to make so much money I wouldn't care. That's not even the worst part. She pulled out another document. A business plan dated 3 years ago. Under startup costs, there was a line item, family investment, deferred liability, $147,000. They'd budgeted my college fund into their business plan before even asking me. Can I keep these? They're yours. I made copies for myself, just in case. Why are you doing this? She smiled sadly. Because when I broke up with your brother, your parents told everyone I was trying to sabotage his success. They destroyed my reputation in our social circle. I lost friends because of their lies. She stood to leave. Some people don't deserve protection, even if they're family. The hearing was brutal. My parents' attorney opened with an emotional appeal about family loyalty and the devastating impact of my vindictive lawsuit on elderly parents facing health crises and financial ruin. My lawyer stood up and projected the business registration on the screen. The defendants claim financial hardship, yet they own a business currently valued at $2.7 million. They transferred assets into this business immediately before filing bankruptcy, deliberately hiding wealth from creditors. She clicked to the next slide. Screenshots of my brother's social media. The defendants claim they were innocent investors, unaware the startup funds came from a protected trust. Yet here, their son publicly credits his sister's college fund as seed money. Another click. The business plan with my college fund listed as a startup cost. This wasn't an impulsive decision. This was premeditated theft of a minor's inheritance. The judge looked at my parents. Is this accurate? Their attorney scrambled. Your Honor, There were legitimate financial needs. I asked if the documents are accurate. Did your clients use a trust fund designated for their daughter's education as business startup costs? Silence. Yes, my father finally said. But we intended to pay her back. With interest? Eventually. Did you inform your daughter before taking the money? We told her we were investing it. Did she consent? More silence. She was 17, Mom interjected. She didn't understand. Understand what? That you were stealing her inheritance? My mother's face went red. That's not what happened. Then explain to me what happened, Mrs. Caldwell. My lawyer stepped in. Your Honor, we have documentation proving the defendant structured their business specifically to hide assets in bankruptcy. They're simultaneously claiming poverty while operating a multi-million-dollar company. And now they're suing their daughter for elder care support, despite having substantial hidden wealth. This hearing is about filial responsibility, my parents' attorney argued. Whether the daughter has a legal obligation to care for her parents. The business is irrelevant. The business is entirely relevant, the judge interrupted. Because if the parents have hidden assets, they don't qualify for filial responsibility support. This case is dismissed. Your Honor, and I'm referring this matter to the bankruptcy trustee for investigation. This hearing is over. My parents sat frozen as the judge left the courtroom. Their attorney turned on them. You told me you had no assets. The business is different. The business is an asset you deliberately hid. Do you understand you've committed fraud? I gathered my things and walked out. My lawyer caught up with me in the hallway. That went well. What happens next? The trustee will investigate. If they find fraud, your parents could face criminal charges. The business assets will likely be seized to pay creditors. And my counterclaim? We file it separately. The trust violation. We're asking for the original amount plus compound interest, totaling $380,000, plus punitive damages for the emotional distress and financial hardship you endured. Will we win? Based on what we presented today? Yes. I drove home in a daze. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like I'd burned down everything I'd ever known. My phone rang. An unknown number. This is Channel 7 News. We're doing a story on filial responsibility laws and elder care lawsuits. Your case was mentioned in court today. Would you be willing to comment? No. Just a few questions. I said no. But the story ran anyway. By evening, I was trending on local social media. Half the comments called me a hero for standing up to entitled parents. The other half called me heartless for abandoning my family. Someone found my brother's social media posts and shared them widely. The post about using my college fund got screenshot and went viral. Imagine bragging about stealing your sister's future. One comment read. My brother's business started getting negative reviews. Comments on their website calling them frauds. I watched it all unfold from my couch, eating ice cream straight from the container. My phone buzzed. A text from the unknown number that had been my brother's. You've destroyed us. I hope you're happy. I typed back, I'm not happy, but I'm free. Then I blocked the number. The forensic audit took 3 weeks. The results were damning. My parents had hidden $823,000 in assets through the business. They'd used shell companies, fake vendors, and offshore accounts to make it look legitimate. The bankruptcy filing was completely fraudulent. The trustee filed criminal charges. My parents' attorney called to discuss a plea deal. They'll plead guilty to bankruptcy fraud. In exchange, they'll return all hidden assets to creditors and agree to a payment plan for your counterclaim. What's the payment plan? $380,000 over 10 years plus 6% interest. I did the math. They'd pay about $420,000 total. What about the business? They'll have to surrender their shares. Your brother can keep his 40%, but they lose control. And if I don't accept, they go to trial. If convicted, they're looking at 3 to 5 years in prison. But you'd have to wait for the criminal case to resolve before pursuing your civil claim. I thought about my father in the hospital. My mother's voice on the phone. My brother standing at my door. I'll accept on one condition. What's that? They have to make a public statement admitting what they did, not some vague apology, a detailed confession, and it has to be posted on my brother's business social media account. They'll never agree to that. Then we'll see them in trial. 2 days later, my lawyer called back. They agreed. To all of it? Everything. Statement, payment plan, surrendering business shares. They're signing tomorrow. I felt numb. Why would they agree? Because your brother convinced them. Apparently, the negative publicity was destroying the business. They're losing clients. Partners are backing out. He told them this was the only way to salvage anything. The statement posted the next morning. In 2015, we made a terrible decision. We used funds set aside for our daughter's education to invest in a business venture. This money came from a trust established by her grandmother specifically for college expenses. We did not have permission to use these funds. We violated our daughter's trust and our mother's wishes. It continued for 3 paragraphs, detailing the fraud, the bankruptcy scheme, the deliberate hiding of assets. We are profoundly sorry for the pain we caused. We are working to make restitution and accept full responsibility for our actions. We hope our daughter can someday forgive us, though we understand if she cannot. The post had 5,000 comments within an hour. Most of them were brutal. You didn't just betray your daughter, you betrayed your own mother's wishes. Imagine being so entitled you steal from your child and then sue them for not taking care of you. This is why some people don't talk to their families. My brother's business lost 3 major clients that week. 2 investors pulled out. The company's valuation dropped by 40%. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. My aunt called again. I saw the statement. Yeah, how are you doing? I don't know. I won, but it doesn't feel like winning. That's because you're a decent person. You didn't want to destroy them. You just wanted them to acknowledge what they did. Was it worth it? That's not for me to answer, but I'll say this. Your grandmother would be proud of you for fighting back. She spent her whole life letting people walk over her. She didn't want that for you. After we hung up, I pulled out the old photo album I'd brought from my childhood home, found a picture of Grandma and me from my high school graduation. She'd slipped me a card that day with $200 inside and a note for textbooks. Don't let anyone tell you education isn't worth it. She'd known even then that my family didn't value my dreams. The first payment arrived 6 weeks later. $3,160 deposited into my account with the memo settlement payment 1 of 120. I stared at the notification for a long time. Then I forwarded it to my financial advisor with instructions to invest it in an education fund. Not for me, for someone else who might need it. I want to set up a scholarship, I told him, for students whose families can't or won't support their education. What should we call it? I thought about my grandmother, about the trust she'd tried to give me, about the 17-year-old girl who'd been told loans were her only option. The Second Chance Education Fund. I like it. What are the requirements? First-generation college students, low income, and they have to write an essay about what family means to them. That last one seems specific. It is. The fund launched 6 months later. We had enough for one full scholarship the first year. A girl from Chicago who'd been working 3 jobs to save for community college. I met her when we presented the award. She cried and thanked me at least 20 times. You don't understand, she said. My mom told me I was wasting my time. That college was for other people. This proves her wrong. I understood perfectly. My parents' payments continued like clockwork. $3,160 every month. I never missed a deposit, and neither did they. We didn't speak. My brother's business recovered slowly. He restructured, brought in new partners, rebranded. Within 2 years, Tech Venture Solutions became VentureNext Consulting. Different name, same concept. He sent me a LinkedIn connection request. I declined. On what would have been my grandmother's 85th birthday, I visited her grave for the first time in years, brought flowers and a copy of the scholarship announcement. We're funding 5 students this year, I told her headstone. Next year, we're hoping for 10. All because you tried to give me a chance. I sat there for a while, watching the sunset. I don't know if I did the right thing, I admitted. But I know I did something you would have wanted. I fought back. I didn't let them make me small. A breeze rustled through the trees. I hope that's enough. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is your father. Mom is sick, cancer, stage 3. She's asking for you. I stared at the message for a long time. Thought about the girl I'd been at 17, the woman I'd become at 29, the choice I had to make now. I typed, I'm sorry she's sick, but I can't be what you need me to be. She's your mother. And she made her choices. I'm making mine. I blocked the number and went home. That night, I had a dream about my grandmother. She was sitting at her old kitchen table, the one I remembered from childhood visits. You did good, sweetheart, she said. Did I? They're calling me heartless. People always call women heartless when we stop letting them hurt us. She poured 2 cups of tea. You want to know a secret? I didn't just leave you that money for college. I left it because I knew they'd try to take it. And I wanted you to learn to fight. I'm tired of fighting. Then rest. But don't ever think you did the wrong thing by standing up for yourself. I woke up with tears on my face. The scholarship fund grew. By year 3, we were funding 12 students. By year 5, 28. Each one wrote me a letter after graduation, thanked me for believing in them when their families didn't. I kept every letter in a folder labeled worth it. My brother tried to contact me once more, 3 years after the settlement. An email this time. Mom died last week. Funeral is Saturday. Thought you should know. I sat with that information for a long time. Thought about calling, thought about going. Instead, I sent flowers to the funeral home with a card that read, I'm sorry for your loss. I didn't sign it. That night, I pulled out the old photo albums again, found pictures of Mom and me from when I was little. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, summer vacations. She looked happy in those photos. We both did. I wondered when it changed, when her love became conditional, when my brother's dreams became more important than mine. Maybe it was always that way, and I just hadn't noticed. I threw the albums in the trash. Then I pulled them back out. Some memories, even painful ones, deserve to be kept. Not because they're happy, but because they're true. Year 6 of the settlement payments, I got a letter from my brother's attorney. Due to business complications, your brother is requesting a modification of the payment schedule. Translation? They couldn't afford it anymore. I forwarded it to my lawyer. What do you want to do? She asked. What are my options? Demand full payment of the remaining balance. Take them back to court. Or negotiate new terms. What would happen if I demanded full payment? They'd likely have to sell the business. Declare bankruptcy again, this time legitimately. I thought about it for exactly 30 seconds. Demand full payment. You're sure? They signed a contract. They need to honor it. The remaining balance was $254,000. They paid it in one lump sum 2 months later by selling the business. VentureNext Consulting ceased to exist. My brother sent one final email. I hope destroying everything I built was worth it. I didn't respond. Instead, I took that $254,000 and fully funded the scholarship for the next 3 years. 42 students got full rides because my family finally paid their debt. Worth it? Absolutely. I'm 35 now. I still live in the 3-bedroom house I bought at 29. Still work in finance. Still fund the scholarship every year. The Second Chance Education Fund has helped 127 students so far. We're on track to hit 150 by next year. Last month, I got a letter from the first scholarship recipient. She's graduating medical school. I think about you every time someone asks who supported my education, she wrote. I tell them about a stranger who understood what it meant to fight for your future, who turned her own pain into someone else's opportunity. You changed my life. I cried reading that letter, because maybe that's what justice looks like. Not revenge, not destruction, but taking the worst thing that ever happened to you and making sure it never happens to anyone else. My family stole my college fund, betrayed my trust, tried to manipulate me into supporting them after leaving me with nothing, and I turned that into 127 scholarships and counting. I turned it into freedom. I haven't spoken to any of them in 4 years. Don't plan to. Sometimes people ask if I regret it, if I wish I'd tried to reconcile. The answer is no, because family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about showing up, supporting each other, keeping promises. My family broke every promise that mattered. So I made new ones. To myself, to my grandmother, to every student who'd been told their dreams weren't worth investing in. Those are the promises I'm keeping. Last week, I drove past my childhood home. New family lives there now. The yard looks different. Better. I didn't feel anything looking at it. No nostalgia, no grief, just gratitude that I got out, that I fought back, that I refused to let them define my worth. The student loan debt that should never have existed is gone. The house I bought is paid off. The scholarship fund is thriving. And I sleep well at night knowing I don't owe them anything. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, not another chance. I gave them the exact same support they gave me, $0 and a list of resources. The difference is, I did it honestly. They spent my college fund on my brother's dreams and called it love. I spent it on 127 students' futures and called it justice. I know which one my grandmother would be proud of. And honestly, that's the only opinion that matters anymore. My stepfather said, "This house will go to all my children equally." Then my lawyer reminded him my mom's name was still on the deed. The silence that followed was beautiful. Richard's face went from smug to pale in 3 seconds flat. His attorney cleared his throat and suggested we take a break. But I wasn't done. Mom died 6 months earlier after fighting pancreatic cancer. I'd been the one feeding her ice chips when she could no longer swallow. The one changing bedsheets at 3 a.m. when the sweating got bad. Richard would pop in, ask if we needed anything, then retreat to his study for conference calls that always happened during her worst moments. The house was a Victorian my grandparents bought in 1962. When Mom married Richard 12 years ago, she kept it in her name only. Smart woman. His kids, Brendan, Corinne, and Devin, treated this place like a vacation rental. They'd show up twice a year, raid the fridge, then disappear back to California. Richard's lawyer shifted through papers, his confidence evaporating. The deed shows Patricia Reynolds as sole owner. Mr. Reynolds has no ownership stake. Exactly, my lawyer Teresa said. The house passes according to Patricia's will. Corinne leaned forward. Dad's been paying the mortgage for years. Actually, Teresa pulled out another document. The mortgage was paid off in 2008 by Patricia using her inheritance. I watched Richard's jaw clench. He'd been so certain he could divide up Mom's house like a pie and play the magnanimous father. Brendan stood up. We're family. You can't cut us out. I'm following my mother's wishes, I said quietly. She left the house to me, her biological daughter. Devin's face reddened. We meant nothing to her? You visited twice a year, I said. You couldn't name her favorite flower. When she was dying, you were too busy until the will reading. Teresa placed Mom's will on the table. Patricia Reynolds leaves her entire estate to her daughter. Mr. Reynolds receives the joint account contents. Everything else belongs to her daughter. Richard found his voice. You manipulated her. She wasn't thinking clearly. She was clear enough to tell me about your affair 2 years ago, I said. Clear enough to know about the expense reports you padded from the joint account. His face went white. Corinne stared at her father. What affair? Richard stood abruptly. We'll contest the will. Try, Teresa said. I have statements from her oncologist and psychiatrist confirming she was competent. I gathered my things. You have 30 days to remove your belongings. Then I'm changing the locks. As I walked out, Richard followed me onto the porch. You think you're so smart. You have no idea what I'm capable of. I stopped and turned. While you planned how to divide her house, I found something in her safety deposit box. Mom kept excellent records. Bank statements, emails, photos. 12 years of documentation. His face transformed to genuine fear. What are you talking about? I pulled an envelope from my purse. Read it at home. Then call your lawyer. We're not done talking about inheritances. Inside was proof of every financial manipulation, every hidden account, every lie he'd told Mom. I'd spent 6 months piecing it together, following the trail she'd left me. As I drove away, my phone rang. Unknown number. This is Detective Morrison with Financial Crimes. I need to speak about Patricia Reynolds and irregularities in accounts associated with Richard Patterson. When can you come in? I met Detective Morrison the next morning at the precinct. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with tired eyes that suggested he'd seen too many families destroy each other over money. The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and old files. Ms. Reynolds, thank you for coming in, he said, gesturing to a chair. We've been investigating your stepfather for 8 months. My stomach dropped. 8 months? Your mother filed a report last year, he explained, sliding a folder across the table. She came to us with concerns about missing funds from their joint accounts. We started building a case, but then she became too ill to continue. I opened the folder. Mom's handwriting covered page after page, documenting dates, amounts, transfers I'd never known about. She never told me. She wanted to protect you, Morrison said gently, but she made it clear that if anything happened to her, you'd have the rest of the evidence. The safety deposit box, I whispered. He nodded. We need those documents. Your stepfather's been moving money for years. The joint account was just the beginning. He's got offshore accounts, shell companies, properties purchased under false names. I thought about Richard's confident face at the will reading. He'd been so sure he could take everything. How much? We estimate around $2.3 million over the past decade. The number hit me like a physical blow. While Mom was dying, while I was liquidating her retirement accounts to pay for experimental treatments, insurance wouldn't cover. Richard had millions hidden away. Some of that money was hers. Most of it, Morrison confirmed. He'd been systematically draining accounts your mother inherited from her parents, forging her signature on transfers, creating investment accounts in both their names, then moving the profits into accounts only he controlled. I felt sick. My grandparents left her that money to be secure. We can trace it all back, Morrison said, but we need your cooperation, and everything from that safety deposit box. I drove straight to the bank. The manager, Mrs. Whitmore, had known my grandparents. She'd been the one to give me the key after Mom's funeral, pressing it into my palm with a knowing look. Your mother came in 6 weeks before she passed, Mrs. Whitmore said quietly, as she led me to the vault. She updated the box, said you'd know what to do with the contents. Inside were 3 folders, each labeled in Mom's shaky handwriting. The first was titled Financial Fraud, the second, The Affair. The third simply said, For my daughter. I opened the third folder first. A letter fell out. My dearest girl, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't be braver while I was alive. I'm sorry I stayed with Richard for so long, that I let his children treat you like an intruder in your own home. I was weak, and you deserved better. But I wasn't completely weak. I documented everything. Every lie, every theft, every betrayal. I went to the police, but I didn't have the strength to see it through. You'll have to be stronger than me. The house is yours. I made sure of it years ago when I first suspected what Richard was doing. Everything else I own is yours too. But there's more money than you know about. Money that Richard stole from accounts your grandparents set up for us. Money that's rightfully yours. Make him pay, sweetheart. Not just for me, but for every woman who's been too sick, too tired, too broken to fight back. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry I won't be there to see you win. Mom. I sat in the bank vault and cried for the first time since her funeral. Not sad tears, angry ones. The financial fraud folder contained printouts of bank statements going back 11 years. Mom had highlighted every suspicious transfer in yellow. There were dozens, hundreds. She'd tracked Richard's spending, too. Receipts for jewelry I'd never seen her wear. Hotel stays in cities he'd never mentioned visiting. Charges to florists, restaurants, a lease payment for an apartment in downtown Chicago. The affair folder had photos. Richard with a woman who looked barely 30. Richard and the same woman at a restaurant holding hands across the table. Richard and the woman entering the apartment building from the lease payments. The photos were dated. Some were from 2 years ago, but others went back 5 years. While Mom was healthy, while she still believed she had a real marriage. I photographed every document with my phone and uploaded them to a secure cloud drive. Then I loaded the originals into my car and drove back to the precinct. Detective Morrison's eyes widened as I emptied the folders onto his desk. This is incredible. My mother was meticulous, I said. She documented everything. He picked up a bank statement. This shows a transfer of $75,000 to a shell company called Reynolds Holdings LLC. We've been trying to prove Richard controlled that company for months. Keep looking, I said. She's got the incorporation documents in there somewhere. Richard used her maiden name thinking no one would connect it to him. Morrison flipped through papers, then stopped. Here, the LLC is registered to an address in Nevada, but your mother found the actual office. It's a P.O. box Richard rented using his secretary's name. Shelley Warren, I said, remembering the woman who'd called the house at odd hours, always claiming it was about work. She's in some of those photos. The affair, Morrison said, finding the folder. His expression hardened as he looked through the images. How long was your mother sick? Diagnosed 18 months ago. Fought for 12 months before the cancer one. He was cheating on her while she was dying. It wasn't a question. And stealing from her to pay for his girlfriend's apartment. Morrison sat back in his chair. Ms. Reynolds, this is enough to file criminal charges. Wire fraud, forgery, theft. He's looking at serious prison time. Good, I said. When? I need a few days to organize everything and coordinate with the district attorney. But soon. I stood to leave, then turned back. Detective, there's something else you should know. Richard threatened me yesterday. Said I had no idea what he was capable of. Morrison's expression sharpened. Did he threaten you physically? It was vague, but the way he said it made me nervous. I'll have patrol increase presence near your address. And Ms. Reynolds, don't go anywhere alone with him. Don't let him in the house. If he shows up, call 911 immediately. I drove home as the sun was setting, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The Victorian looked beautiful in the golden light, exactly the way it had when I was a child and my grandparents were still alive. This house held every good memory I had before Mom married Richard. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're making a huge mistake. Drop this now. I screenshot it and forwarded it to Detective Morrison, then blocked the number. Another text came through, different number. Your mother was a vindictive bitch who couldn't handle that I wanted more from life. You're just like her. Screenshot, forward, block. Then my phone rang. Brendan's name on the screen. What? I answered. We need to talk, he said, face to face. I have nothing to say to you. My father is not who you think he is, Brendan said quietly. I'm coming to the house. Don't call the cops. I'm trying to help you. He hung up before I could respond. 30 minutes later, headlights swept across the front windows. I watched from behind the curtain as Brendan got out of a rental car, alone. He looked exhausted. His shoulders slumped as he climbed the porch steps. I opened the door before he could knock. You have 5 minutes. He stepped inside, glancing around the foyer like he was seeing it for the first time. I haven't been here in 3 years. 4, I corrected. Mom's birthday party that you left early because you had dinner plans. He flinched. I'm sorry. For all of it. For not being here when she was sick. For not seeing what Dad was doing. What are you talking about? Brendan pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. Bank statements. Dad put Corinne, Devin, and me as authorized users on some of his accounts. We didn't know where the money was coming from. Last week, after the will reading, I started digging. These are transfers from accounts that had Patricia's name on them. I looked at the amounts. Transfers of $10,000, $25,000, $50,000, all going to accounts labeled Family Trust. There is no family trust, Brendan said. I called the bank. Those accounts are solely in Dad's name. He's been telling us for years that our inheritance was growing in this trust fund, but it's just money he stole from Patricia. Why are you telling me this? He met my eyes. Because what he did was wrong. Because Patricia took care of us when we were kids, and we repaid her by acting entitled. Because I need to know if I'm complicit in fraud. You might be, I said honestly, if you benefited from stolen money. I figured. He looked miserable. I talked to Corinne and Devin. We want to make this right. We'll testify if needed. We'll return any money that came from Patricia's accounts. I studied his face, looking for the lie, but he just looked tired and ashamed. Your father threatened me yesterday. Brendan's expression darkened. He's dangerous when he's cornered. When my mom divorced him, she dropped the case completely even though she had evidence of his affairs. She told me years later that he'd made it clear she'd never see us again if she didn't back down. He has connections, money, and no conscience. What kind of connections? I don't know specifics, but he's got friends in construction, real estate, city council, people who owe him favors, people who've helped make problems disappear before. A chill ran down my spine. What kind of problems? There was a business partner 10 years ago who threatened to expose some shady deals. Suddenly, the guy was under investigation for tax fraud. Lost everything. Dad acted sympathetic, but I saw him smile when he thought no one was looking. I need you to tell this to Detective Morrison, I said. I will, Brendan promised. But you need to be careful. Dad's already spinning this as you being a manipulative gold digger who took advantage of Patricia when she was sick. He's telling everyone who will listen that you forged the will. Let him try. I have proof the will is legitimate. He doesn't need proof, Brendan said. He just needs to create enough doubt that people believe him. He's good at that. After Brendan left, I checked every lock twice and pulled the curtains closed. Sleep didn't come easily. Every sound made me jump. Every car passing on the street made my heart race. At 3 a.m., my phone rang. Detective Morrison. Ms. Reynolds, I'm sorry to call so late. We've had a development. Someone broke into our evidence room tonight. I sat up, fully awake. What? Nothing was taken, but someone tried to access the files on your stepfather's case. Our security cameras caught a man in a maintenance uniform. We're reviewing footage now, but I wanted to warn you. Someone knows we're building a case. Richard has connections, I said, repeating what Brendan had told me. I'm moving the evidence to a secure location, and I'm recommending protective custody for you until we can make an arrest. I'm not leaving this house, I said. My mother left it to me. I'm not letting him scare me away. Ms. Reynolds, I'll install security cameras. I'll keep my doors locked, but I'm not running. Morrison sighed. Then at least let me post an officer outside. I agreed, though it felt surreal. I'd gone from planning my mother's funeral to needing police protection in less than 6 months. The officer arrived at dawn, a woman named Chen who parked her cruiser in my driveway and settled in with coffee and a newspaper. Her presence made me feel slightly safer, though I still jumped when the mail carrier knocked with a package. The package was from Teresa, my lawyer. Inside was a notice that Richard had filed a lawsuit contesting the will. His claim stated that I had exercised undue influence over my mother during her illness, and that she had not been of sound mind when she executed the will. I called Teresa immediately. He can't be serious. He's very serious, she said. But we have medical records proving your mother was competent. Her doctors will testify. This is going to cost him a fortune in legal fees and he'll lose. So why do it? Delay? Harassment? He's hoping you'll settle. Give up the house just to make it go away. That's not happening. Good. I'll file a response. And I'm going to request sanctions for filing a frivolous lawsuit. That afternoon, Corinne called. Brendan told me he talked to you. He did. I'm sorry, she said. And unlike her father, she sounded like she meant it. I'm sorry for how we treated you, how we treated Patricia. She was kind to us and we took advantage. Why are you calling? Because Dad just hired Vincent Reeves. The name meant nothing to me. Who? The most expensive, most ruthless defense attorney in the state. Dad's pulling out all the stops. He's planning to destroy you. Let him try. He's also telling people you're unstable, that you're making up stories about him because you're grieving and looking for someone to blame. He's very convincing. I thought about Richard's performance at the will reading. The wounded stepfather just trying to do right by his late wife's daughter. People will believe what they want. Not everyone, Corinne said. Devin and I are writing statements about what we witnessed. How Dad was never there for Patricia. How he'd take calls from Shelley while Patricia was in the hospital. You knew about Shelley? We suspected. We pretended not to because it was easier than confronting him. After we hung up, I pulled out the photos of Richard and Shelley again. My mother had been so meticulous, documenting dates and times. I noticed something I'd missed before. Several photos had timestamps from days I remembered clearly, days when Richard had claimed to be at business conferences. I called Detective Morrison. The affair overlaps with times Richard claimed to be traveling for work. If he was submitting expense reports for fake business trips while actually seeing his girlfriend, that's more fraud. I'll subpoena his work records, Morrison said. This keeps getting better. 3 days later, Richard was arrested. I watched the news coverage from my living room. Officer Chen still parked in my driveway. Richard in handcuffs, being led from his downtown office. His lawyer, the expensive Vincent Reeves, shouting about wrongful prosecution. Richard's face when he saw the cameras was everything I'd hoped for. Shock, then fury, then a desperate attempt to maintain dignity. He looked directly at the camera and said, "I'm innocent. This is a vindictive attack by my stepdaughter who wants to steal my late wife's estate." But the charges were already public record. Wire fraud, forgery, theft. 11 counts total, each carrying potential prison time. My phone exploded with calls. Reporters wanting comments. Old family friends expressing shock. Richard's business associates trying to gauge if they were implicated. I ignored them all except one, Brendan. "I just testified to the grand jury," he said. "Told them everything I knew about Dad's business practices. About the threats he made to my mom. About the money he claimed was for our trust fund." "Thank you," I said. "It's not enough. It'll never be enough to make up for what we didn't do for Patricia. But it's something." The next week was a blur of legal motions. Richard's lawsuit contesting the will was dismissed with prejudice, the judge calling it a transparent attempt to intimidate the lawful heir while facing criminal prosecution. Teresa filed a countersuit for harassment and legal fees. Richard made bail, $500,000, and immediately went on a PR offensive. He hired a crisis management firm, gave interviews claiming he was being persecuted, created a website called Justice for Patricia that painted me as a manipulative daughter who'd isolated my mother in her final months. The lies were sophisticated. He claimed I'd refused to let him visit Mom in hospice, that I'd intercepted his calls, that I'd turned her against him when she was at her most vulnerable. He had fake emails, supposedly from me, saying cruel things about him. "They're fabrications," Teresa said when I showed her the website. "Anyone with technical knowledge can see they're doctored, but they're convincing enough for people who want to believe them, and people did want to believe them." Richard's friends, his business associates, people who'd known him for decades, they couldn't accept that the charming, successful Richard Patterson was a thief and a liar. Social media was worse. Strangers who'd never met my mother or me decided I was a villain. They found my Facebook profile, my old Instagram posts, and dissected everything looking for proof I was the monster Richard claimed. I made everything private and stopped reading comments. But Richard's children didn't stop. Brendan wrote a blog post detailing what he'd witnessed. Corinne gave an interview to a local reporter about how Richard had been absent during Mom's illness. Devin submitted a written statement to the court describing how Richard had tried to get them to lie about me harassing them. Slowly, the narrative began to shift. Then Detective Morrison called with news that changed everything. "We found another account," he said. "Life insurance policy on your mother, $750,000 payout. Richard was the beneficiary and he claimed it 2 weeks after she died." My vision tunneled. "What? Your mother took out the policy 8 years ago when she was first diagnosed with a health scare. Richard convinced her to list him as the primary beneficiary, said it would help cover funeral costs and bills. She never mentioned it. I don't think she remembered. By the time she got sick, she probably forgot the policy existed. But Richard didn't. He filed the claim the moment the death certificate was issued." I felt sick. Richard had profited from Mom's death while pretending to grieve, while making speeches about what a wonderful woman she'd been, while trying to steal her house. "There's more," Morrison continued. "We subpoenaed Richard's credit card records. 2 days before your mother died, he purchased a $15,000 engagement ring, the room spun, for Shelley. We believe so. He proposed to her a month after Patricia's funeral. I thought about sitting at Mom's bedside during her final days, holding her hand as her breathing grew shallow, whispering that she could let go, that it was okay. While Richard had been planning his next wedding. "How fast can we get him to trial?" I asked. "The DA is pushing for an expedited schedule, 4 to 6 months. I could wait 4 months. I'd waited my entire childhood for Richard to show me basic respect. I'd waited through Mom's illness for him to act like a real husband. I could wait a little longer to watch him face justice." But Richard wasn't done fighting. 2 weeks later, Teresa called with her voice tight with anger. "Richard's legal team filed a motion claiming you coerced your mother into changing her will through elder abuse. That's insane. They have a witness, a hospice nurse named Amy Trudeau. She's claiming she saw you verbally abuse your mother, withhold medication, force her to sign documents when she was incoherent." My blood ran cold. Amy Trudeau worked 2 shifts when Mom was in hospice. She was terrible. She ignored Mom's call button, forgot to refill her water, and I complained about her to the hospice coordinator. "They're claiming you had her removed because she witnessed your abuse." "I had her removed because she was negligent." "I believe you," Teresa said. "But we need to prove it. Do you have documentation of your complaint?" I did. I'd written everything down, kept emails, documented every interaction with hospice staff, because even then, exhausted and grieving, some part of me knew I might need proof. The hospice coordinator, Lenora, agreed to testify. She provided records showing multiple complaints about Amy from other families, a disciplinary record, and documentation that Amy had been terminated 3 months after Mom died for similar negligence with another patient. But Richard's team spun it as a conspiracy. I'd manipulated hospice records, convinced other families to lie, fabricated a paper trail to cover my tracks. The stress was crushing. I couldn't sleep, could barely eat. Every morning brought new accusations, new lies, new attempts to destroy my credibility. Officer Chen was still parked outside, but now I needed her. Because Richard's supporters had found my address. They sent letters calling me a parasite, left dead flowers on the porch. One morning I found my car tires slashed. "This has to stop," I told Detective Morrison. "We're documenting everything. These harassment incidents will strengthen the case against Richard. They show consciousness of guilt, a pattern of intimidation." "I don't care about the case," I said, hating how my voice cracked. "I want it to stop. I want to live in my house without being afraid." Morrison's expression softened. "We're close to trial. His legal team knows they're losing. This desperation is a good sign. It doesn't feel good. But he was right. As Richard's trial date approached, the elaborate lies began to crumble. The forensic accountant testified that the doctored emails on Richard's website had been created recently, not during Mom's illness. The hospice nurse Amy was caught contradicting herself on 3 separate depositions. The life insurance company confirmed Richard had specifically asked about payout timelines while Mom was still alive. Brendan, Corinne, and Devin all testified against their father. Watching them on the stand, describing his manipulations and lies, I felt something shift. They'd been complicit through inaction, but they were trying to make it right. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I sat in the courtroom every day watching Richard's expensive lawyers try to spin his theft as a misunderstanding, his affair as a mistake he'd made during a difficult time, his lies as the desperate acts of a grieving husband, but the jury saw through it. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank statements, forged signatures, photos time-stamped during business trips that never happened, testimony from Shelley's neighbors confirming Richard had lived part-time in the apartment he'd rented with Mom's money. When the verdict came back, I was sitting between Teresa and Brendan, guilty on all 11 counts. Richard's face went gray. He aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Vincent Reeves immediately began talking about appeals, but everyone knew it was over. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. In the meantime, Richard was released on bail with an ankle monitor. He was required to stay at least 500 feet from me, the house, and any location I frequented. He violated the order within 3 days. I was leaving the grocery store when I saw him standing by my car. Officer Chen had taken a day off, so I was alone. "We need to talk," Richard said. I pulled out my phone. "You're violating a court order." "I don't care," he said, stepping closer. "You've destroyed my life. You've turned my children against me. You've taken everything. You destroyed your own life," I said, backing toward the store entrance. "You stole from Mom. You cheated on her while she was dying. You tried to steal her house." "She loved me," he said, and for the first time, he sounded broken. "She actually loved me, and I threw it away for money and Shelley and my own stupid pride. Then you should have thought about that before you betrayed her." "I'm sorry," he said. "Tell me what you want. I'll give you anything. Just drop the charges." "I can't drop criminal charges. That's not how it works." "Then testify for me at sentencing. Tell them I was a good stepfather, that Patricia would want mercy." I laughed, a harsh sound that surprised both of us. "Mom wanted justice. She filed the initial police report. She documented everything because she knew you'd try to get away with it." "She was angry," Richard said desperately. "She wasn't thinking clearly. She was thinking perfectly clearly, clearer than she'd thought in years. She saw you for exactly what you are." Richard's expression shifted from desperate to cold. "You think you've won, but I've still got friends, connections. I can make your life very difficult." "You're going to prison," I said. "Your connections won't help you there." He lunged toward me. I screamed and ran back into the store. The manager called 911. Richard was arrested for violating the protective order and his bail was revoked. He spent the next 6 weeks in jail awaiting sentencing. The sentencing hearing was packed. Richard's supporters on one side, filling the benches with people who still believed he was the victim. Mom's old friends on the other side, women who'd watched her suffer and knew the truth. The judge allowed victim impact statements. I'd prepared mine carefully, writing and rewriting until the words felt right. "Your Honor," I began, my voice shaking only slightly. "Richard Patterson stole $2.3 million from my mother, but the money isn't the worst of what he took. He stole her dignity, her final months of peace, her ability to trust the person she'd chosen to spend her life with. While she was dying, he was planning his future with another woman. While I was feeding her ice chips and changing her bed sheets, he was buying engagement rings. While she was leaving him everything in their joint accounts, believing he'd be taken care of, he was hiding millions in accounts she didn't know existed. My mother was brilliant, kind, and strong. She raised me alone before she met Richard. She built a successful career. She survived the death of her parents and kept their memory alive by maintaining the house they loved. Richard saw all of that and decided it was something he could exploit. He saw a woman who wanted partnership and gave her betrayal. He saw someone who trusted him and turned that trust into a weapon. My mother died believing she'd failed in her second marriage. She died thinking she'd made a mistake bringing Richard into our lives, into her family home. She died with regret and pain that had nothing to do with cancer. That's what Richard Patterson stole. Not just money, hope, trust, peace. I ask this court to give him the maximum sentence. Not for revenge, but because he's shown no genuine remorse. Every step of the way, he's lied, manipulated, and tried to paint himself as the victim. Even after conviction, he violated a protective order to threaten me. He is dangerous, not with weapons, but with charm and deception, and he should not be given another opportunity to hurt anyone else the way he hurt my mother. I sat down. Teresa squeezed my hand. Richard's lawyer gave a statement about Richard's charitable work, his contributions to the community, his loving family. Brendan, Corinne, and Devin all looked at the floor, refusing to make eye contact with their father. The judge took less than 5 minutes to decide. "Mr. Patterson, you exploited a position of trust to systematically steal from your dying wife. You forged her signature. You created false companies and moved money into accounts she couldn't access. You cheated on her during her illness and profited from her death. The court finds your actions to be particularly egregious given the vulnerability of the victim and the extended nature of the fraud. You are sentenced to 15 years in federal prison, with restitution to be paid to Patricia Reynolds' estate in the full amount of $2.3 million plus interest and penalties." Richard's face went blank. 15 years? He'd be nearly 70 when he got out. Vincent Reeves was already talking about appeals, but the judge cut him off. "Mr. Patterson will be remanded to custody immediately." As the bailiffs led Richard away in handcuffs, He looked back at me one last time, not with anger or hatred, just emptiness, like he couldn't quite believe this was real. I felt nothing watching him go. No satisfaction, no relief, just exhaustion. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. I gave a brief statement thanking the prosecutor, the jury, and Detective Morrison. Then Teresa and I pushed through to her car. "It's over," she said as we drove away. "Is it?" "The criminal case is. He'll appeal, but the evidence was too strong. He'll lose." "What about the civil case? The restitution?" "We'll go after every asset he has." The court ordered full restitution. "We'll seize his accounts, put liens on his properties, garnish any income. It'll take time, but you'll get what's owed." I leaned my head against the window and watched the city pass by. Somewhere in a jail cell, Richard was processing his new reality. Somewhere in California, Shelley was probably changing her phone number and deleting social media accounts. Somewhere, Mom's grave sat peacefully in the cemetery she'd chosen, under the oak tree where her parents were buried. "I want to do something with the money," I said. "When we recover it. Something that would make Mom proud." "What are you thinking?" "A foundation for families dealing with cancer, to help with medical bills, time off work, home care, all the things insurance doesn't cover and families can't afford." Teresa smiled. "Patricia would love that." The restitution process took 18 months. Richard's lawyers fought every step, trying to protect his hidden assets. But forensic accountants traced the money through shell companies and offshore accounts. Piece by piece, we recovered what he'd stolen. The final amount, after legal fees and penalties, was $2.1 million. I used it to establish the Patricia Reynolds Foundation. The first grant went to a family in Iowa whose daughter needed experimental treatment. The second went to a single father in Texas who'd exhausted his sick leave caring for his wife. The third, fourth, fifth, each one a small way to honor what Mom had taught me about resilience and love. Brendan, Corinne, and Devin all donated to the foundation. They'd each inherited money from their mother's estate and wanted to do something meaningful with it. We weren't close exactly, but we'd built something like mutual respect. Richard's appeals were denied. All of them. He remained in federal prison, where, according to Brendan, he'd become a model prisoner who taught financial literacy classes to other inmates. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. I still lived in the Victorian. I'd renovated it carefully, preserving everything my grandparents had built while updating the systems Mom had neglected during her illness. The house was warm again, filled with the smell of cooking and the sound of laughter when friends visited. On the anniversary of Mom's death, I planted roses in the garden, her favorite flower, the one Richard's children had never known, deep red blooms that would come back every year, resilient and beautiful. I sat on the porch that evening, watching the sun set over the neighborhood my grandparents had chosen 60 years earlier. My phone buzzed with a notification from the foundation. Another family approved for a grant. Another person who wouldn't have to choose between paying rent and paying for treatment. Mom's letter was framed on my desk inside. I read it sometimes, when I needed to remember why I'd fought so hard. "Make him pay," she'd written. Not just for me, but for every woman who's been too sick, too tired, too broken to fight back. I'd made him pay. But more than that, I'd built something that would outlast his cruelty. Every family the foundation helped was a testament to Mom's strength. Every grant we awarded was proof that the people who try to break us don't get the final word. The house would stand for another 60 years. The foundation would grow. And Mom's memory would live on, not in the money Richard had stolen, but in the generosity she'd inspired. I pulled out my phone and texted Teresa. "Thank you for everything." She responded immediately. "Patricia chose well. She knew you'd fight." The porch swing creaked gently as I rocked, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. Tomorrow I'd go to the office, review new grant applications, meet with the board about expansion plans. But tonight, I just sat in the house my grandparents built, in the home my mother protected, in the space I'd defended. Richard had said he'd make my life difficult. Instead, he'd made it purposeful. That felt like the best kind of victory.